Is this mic sound okay to everybody? Good, we'll get started in just 1 minute. I'll give people a moment here. It's nice to have a mic. If you were at my talk yesterday with that packed, super long room where I was screaming the whole time, it's nice to have a mic, but I was kind of used to screaming, so I might blow you out of the room when I scream into the mic.
Is that mic working?
I am not sure.
Yes. Hello? Hello? Give me the moonlight. This is almost like when you went to Oscar Awards in the light.
Not like that.
Don't shoot.
If you want to
Want to get started?
Yeah, I've got a jam-packed hour.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon. I've been very fortunate to be able to introduce Sky. My name is Mo Boreham. I worked at Sheffield United in England for many years and then came over here and was fortunate enough to work in Los Angeles at the David Beckham Soccer Academy, which we ran for 6 years. I must say that the last 2 days I've seen more rain than I saw in 6 years, so we do apologise for that. Sky is the founder of the Institute for Soccer Parenting, and I think that being a coach for many years, I think that we certainly need some soccer parenting. With a mission of elevating the game and engaging the education of youth soccer parents. The former professional player, Sky, was a collegiate youth All-American goalkeeping defensive MVP and was in the Final Four of the state championships. Sky has coached extensively in youth and collegiate games. She's an MBA graduate of the University of Richmond, and Sky has earned a United States soccer license, B license, and a goalkeeping national diploma. So, without more ado, I shall educate, and you will be educated by this lady because she's an entertainer. That's why we've got the theatre, because she wouldn't talk in a normal room. She wanted a theatre. Okay, so I hand you over to the star of the show.
Great, thank you. Is the mic okay? Perfect. Is he still back there to help it? Okay, good. Thanks for being here. How many of you were at my talk yesterday? Fantastic. Okay, good. So yesterday we talked a lot about this relationship trust, and today we're going to get into a little bit more, or this individual trust and self-trust, and today we're going to get a little bit more into relationship type of trust and building culture as we're establishing these relationships. So obviously the topic is educating and engaging parents to improve club culture. All of my talks this weekend, I'm really trying to dive deep and get to some real issues of what we're dealing with, and not just talk about the problems, but let's get to some solutions. And so today we're going to walk away, or you'll walk away with some real solutions on what you can take back to your clubs to make a real impact in improving the game and improving the environment that your kids are training in. So when we don't give parents a voice, when we push them away, we are definitely holding back the progress that we're all hoping to see within the youth game. I'm in the youth game. I know that there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of frustrations. And what I want to propose to you today is to start thinking about the fact that by pushing parents away, by disengaging them, by not being willing to talk to them and to be involved with them, we are actually making the things that we're frustrated about happen. Because I believe, and I will show you today and we can talk about it and figure this out, that the parents are actually the solution to the issues that we face in youth soccer and not the problem. And we need to have a complete paradigm shift as we approach the parents and as we think about how we're willing to engage them and involve them in the work that we do. And the really important work that we do, impacting these kids' lives and the lives of families that we work with. So what is culture? My best best demonstration of culture that I've experienced in my life. And I've had an opportunity, fortunately, to be involved in a number of organizations and teams that have fantastic cultures. I was a member of a Final Four team. We lost in the national championship team. We lost in the national championships. We were the last team selected into the NCAA tournament, and we lost in the finals. And we were just that incredibly special team where everything all came together and our culture was very strong. After college and after my playing, I worked for Lanzera. How many of you all remember Lanzera? First U.S. soccer manufacturer, fantastic group of 4 brothers that own Lanzera, and a wonderful company culture. And beyond all of that, I had the massive privilege of, for about 15 years, working for Tony DeCicco with Soccer Plus Camps. This is a picture of Soccer Plus Camps. And I have to say that the culture that Tony established in a Soccer Plus camp environment was one that I have learned from and that I will pull from even today. So culture is all about vision. It's about values. It's about your practices, what you actually do, and the people that you have involved with you. And at Tony's Soccer Plus camp, the vision was very, very clear. We were there to impact the lives of the kids that were at camp. That's what his camp vision is all about. If you ask him what his vision statement is, impacting kids through goalkeeping or through the game, as he's built his camps into a field player camp as well. And what were the values of the camp? You know, those were evident in everything that we did. And the value statements that he had, things like no sitting down. You can't lean against the post when you're coaching. You know, the values that he brought to the table of it's always about the kids. It's never about us as a staff, because the kids are the ones that we're here to impact. And to get a group of staff, largely college people, and what do you want to think about in college? When you're 21 years old, it's all about you. And he was able to establish a culture that made it all about the kids. And that was evident also through the practices that we had. So through actually the actions of what we were doing. So I was saying, like, we weren't allowed to sit down. We always had to be dressed very professionally. The interactions that we had with the kids, if there was a kid that was sitting at a table alone, you had to go sit with them and engage them in conversation and get to know them even better. So he really had the structure in place in terms of how we needed to act. And then finally, the people that were there. How many of you, when I said Soccer Plus, said, oh, she's one of those? Because it's this kind of real deep group of people that have worked for Soccer Plus camps. And aside from having that goalkeeper union where us all goalkeepers grab together, if I found somebody here that had worked at Soccer Plus camps, I could go on a week vacation with them in Europe and it would be fine, because I know that they're the same type of people that I am. And Tony did an exceptional job of weeding out those people that came through. You'd work a week, they just don't quite fit the mold, and they're out. And I want us to start with thinking about what the culture is within our organizations, what the culture is within our club. And these are issues that we kind of throw around a lot. We sort of talk about culture, we talk about values, we talk about mission statement, but the real question is how are we living that in our daily lives when we're engaging and we're working with our families? So after last year's convention, I wrote an article, and this was the picture, the article. My company is Soccer Parenting. I do a lot of blogging and writing for it. And the article was about how we need to massively change the culture that's going on. Because I spent my time walking around the convention floor, talking to coaches, and it happens all the time today and yesterday and since Tuesday when I've been here. Oh, you do soccer parenting. Thank goodness. Somebody needs to handle those parents or the issues that we have. And even yesterday at a talk that I went to, there was a coach that was on the panel that actually said, there's just no loyalty in youth sports. It's not possible. It's just not going to work with this pay-to-play model. And so we have within us this deep-rooted sense within our culture of what is going on, or of issues that aren't really true. And in this article, I highlighted this book by an MIT author, or MIT professor, Edward Schein. And the title of his book is I have it over here, sorry, because it's a great book to read if you're thinking about club culture, organizational culture and leadership. And he talks about the surface level of leadership, the part that's above the water, and that those are sort of our norms. Those are the way that we dress on the soccer field, the way the pitch looks, how organized our practices are, maybe the type of, and the frequency of communication, just sort of the norms that we have within an organization. And then right below the surface is an area that is like our goals, our values, our mission statement. And those are all really important to our company and to our clubs. But under that is this massive bit of iceberg. And this is the foundation of our organization. And you can see here how powerful and strong it is. And at that deepest level, those are all of our assumptions. And that is where we are really off right now in youth soccer, because we've made a lot of incorrect assumptions. Parents have made incorrect assumptions about coaches. Coaches have made incorrect assumptions about parents, assuming that they're all going to be on the same page, they're all going to be this sort of crazy soccer parent. And so what we need to do is come up with our values as clubs and as organizations and have those values drive us. And I know that's an exercise that many of you as club administrators have been through. You know, we go through and we come up with a mission statement and we go through and we create value statements. But the question is are we really truly living those value statements as we're going through our day-to-day experiences with the people, the families, the kids, the coaches, everyone that's in our club. So what I want to share with you here are the 6 value statements that I've created for soccer parenting. And I think they're applicable to you all as club administrators or as coaches. And you can kind of, rework them a little bit as you're thinking about them for teams versus for parents. So the first value statement is active health. I assume you've read it by now, but we acknowledge the importance of long-term athletic development. We understand that youth soccer participation supports an active lifestyle. The longer children continue to play, the healthier they'll be, the more likely they are to be healthy adults. Now, this is what really needs to drive us. It's not about the game, it's about kids being healthy. Value statement number 2 at soccer parenting is about coach integrity. We acknowledge the positive impact a coach can make on a child's life. That's why you all do this. This is not about teaching kids the game. This is youth soccer, so this is about impacting a child's life. And as a coach, the amount of integrity that you bring to the table is extremely important, and it needs to be a value statement that drives all of your actions. And integrity, as we talked about yesterday, is the choices that we make with the feelings that we have. So if we let our feelings drive our actions versus if we let what we know we should do, if we let our values drive our actions. And so integrity is when our values are driving our actions. The 4th value statement with soccer parenting is life lessons. This is why our kids, we want our kids playing the game. We support our children's youth soccer participation because we want them to develop grit, determination, resiliency, while learning some really important life lessons in empathy, compassion, solidarity. These are all important lessons that as parents we strive for our kids. And my question to all of you is, as coaches, is that what you're striving for as well? Because really, that's what we should be striving for. The 4th value statement, soccer knowledge. We foster our children's love of soccer by seeking to educate ourselves about the rules, the nuances, the intricacies of the game. I think that's important for parents to do. Right? We get frustrated with parents on the sidelines. I was at a game the other day, and this parent was just being ridiculous. But at one point, she stood up because the referee made a call that she wasn't happy with, and she went, 10 feet, ref. And I was like, oh my God, she's so upset. She doesn't even know the rules. But I think it's important that we can educate parents on the soccer knowledge. The 5th value statement, love of the game. We acknowledge that every child, and this is important, because clubs need to acknowledge this, and we need to find a better way of giving all kids, regardless of their level of play, a participation pathway. So we acknowledge that every child has varying levels of athletic potential, and we seek to establish an environment where all children can play soccer because they just love to play. And I have a lot of stories about this. I write about my son sometimes in soccer parenting. He is a participation player. My son is not very athletic. I don't know where those genes went. They did not arrive with him. He's 13 years old. Probably most likely this would be the age that he would drop out of soccer. This is when 70% of kids drop out of soccer at the age of 13. And fortunately, my son hasn't been one of those because the club and some other programming and the school that he has an environment where he's welcome to play. And I, as a parent, aren't stressed. I acknowledge and happily acknowledge, I think the article I wrote about him last was celebrating my son's athletic averageness. Because that's what he is, and what's wrong with being average? At the end of the day, I really just want him continuing to participate in sports. And so, this value statement is important, and I think this can drive parents, but I also, like I've said, hope that you can bring these back to your clubs to help them drive your club, and these can be the value statements, tweaked a little bit for your clubs as well. A balanced outlook. This is obviously, we know, we need to have a balanced outlook. Our kids are not going to be national team players. The majority of them will not get a scholarship to college. This is really just about them being healthy. So we seek to use a clear perspective as a parent when making soccer choices for our children, ensuring that the decisions are in the best interest of their long-term happiness, of their contentment, and of their positive attitude. Because we know that kids, why do they play sports? Yeah, they want to have fun. I don't care about winning. I said to my son the other day, he's doing this indoor winter training sessions at this great place called Own Touch, which I really should just write about because it's phenomenal. And it's not affiliated with any club. It's just soccer. And he goes twice a week, and I thought, gosh, he's really enjoying this. Maybe I should sign him up for futsal. So I said, Davis, do you want me to sign you up for futsal? Do you want to so you can play some games? And he was like, what do you mean, Mom? I play games every day at Own Touch. Because to him, the 7v5, if that's how the numbers worked out, with a staff coach jumping in to kind of make things even, is playing. He doesn't need a referee. He doesn't need anything. And his love of the game at the age of 13, I'm just so happy to say is really strong. And I hope that one day maybe he'll play adult league soccer or he'll be a fan of the game, and as he's developed this love of the game. So we talked about culture, and now let's bring it together to engagement. And how can we take this culture that we're creating within our club, and how much of that information there was about soccer? It was about the tactics. None, really, right? Because we're focusing on the process, not the outcomes. We want parents to focus on the development, not the winning, right? We're sick of those parents that switch teams, that club hop to go find that team that wins the games. But if we're not talking about the values, and if we're not talking about the process that we're going to go through, then, got it? It's okay. If we're not talking about the process, then we can't expect the parents to be thinking about it as well. So what is engagement? This is a very clear, good definition. Parents and club staff working together to support and improve the learning, the development, the health of the children and the families. And I hope that you all start to think about that. This is not just kids you're affecting, but it's the families that we're affecting through soccer as well. I mean, we're at Stryker Park. I'm at the fields 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week usually for my daughter. So it's a big part of our family. And the involvement that the amount of time that we spend at a club is a big part of our family. So the benefits of engagement. What I decided to do here is to look at education, because we're educators. Again, that's what we need to think of ourselves. If we're a youth soccer coach, we're an educator. We're not a coach or a teacher of the game. It's not as much about soccer as it is about education. So I pulled a study from Henderson and Burla from 1994. They reviewed and analyzed 85 studies that documented the impact that parent engagement has on education. And this is sort of what they brought together from that. So the benefits of engagement: higher performing schools, consistent homework completion. When parents are engaged in the school process, the children achieve more. They have better self-esteem, more self-discipline, and show higher aspirations when parents are engaged in schools. There's a lower dropout rate. more satisfied teachers, and the parents are empathetic towards the teacher. So let's pull this and think about what this means for our clubs. Oh, and also parents' perceptions of the school improve. So I'll let you guys grab that because a lot of people taking pictures. So let's relate this to our clubs. So the benefits of engagement for our clubs. I'll go back to that. So we know this. So what can we think about? And I'll take some words here. I know they're taping this, but if you could talk loud, it'll pick up on the mic. What are some benefits of engagement when we think about our clubs? Knowing that this happens for schools, how can we relate this to soccer? Yes, you just speak up. I can't see you, so.
Parents will be more empathetic of the, I guess, difficulties that a coach faces.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's stressful being a youth soccer coach. And we'll talk about that a lot tomorrow when we do when I do my session on emotional intelligence. But there's a lot that's happening in our minds as we're going through a game. And to know that a parent could be a little bit more empathetic to what we're going through, phenomenal. That would definitely release some stress for coaches. Anyone else?
They'll understand your goals.
Yeah, they understand your goals. If you...
Regardless of the result.
Yes.
Especially.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone was in my interview that I did for John O'Sullivan yesterday. He decided to create some values for his daughter's team and engage the kids in creating values for his daughter's team. They just finished up their season. So he had the girls get together at the beginning of the season. He knew it would be tough because they got kind of screwed by the birth year and ended up in the wrong division with this new team of girls that kind of all were coming together. And so he sat down with them and the girls came up with what their values would be. And every day at practice, every time they came out, one of those values was the focus of practice. At the end of practice, he would talk to the girls about it. He would email the parents, every once in a while and fill them in on what was going on. And at the end of the season, the parents came up to him so grateful, so thankful. This is the best youth soccer experience my child's ever had. We can't wait for it to start next year. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that team was 0-23-1. They didn't win a game the entire season. They played 24 games and never won a game. And it was the best youth soccer experience that these kids had because he engaged the parents and they were focusing on the other values that we can think about in the process instead of the winning. So these are the lists that I came up with, kind of relating soccer to what we know about education. So the benefits of engagement for youth soccer clubs. Higher performing clubs. What does that mean? Success, maybe better numbers-wise. Hey, how about this? We're affecting kids' lives more. Kids are walking away, they're better individuals. They will be healthier adults. Families will be better off if we engage them. That will be the result of just engaging parents. And we'll get into some specifics of how we can do this. Wouldn't that be nice? Players will train on their own. Players will do better. They'll perform better on the field. That would be fantastic. Players will show higher aspirations and motivation. They'll come to practice maybe ready to train more. Fewer kids will quit playing. I mean, this is a big issue that we have in our clubs these days. With the dwindling numbers, clubs having to merge together just to try to make this pay-to-play model work. If kids keep playing, that's not going to be as big of a problem. More satisfied coaches, I'm sure we would all love to be more satisfied with our jobs. And parents being more empathetic to the coach. Wouldn't that be nice? And finally, parents' perceptions of the club will improve. Sorry, I'll get out of your way. I can see everybody taking pictures. Be in everybody's pictures. So the benefits of engagement, the benefits of us taking the time to change the way we think about things, and instead of pushing parents away, deciding that we'll include them in the process. So how do schools engage parents? Let's talk about that a little bit. What do schools do? What does engagement really mean for a school? Volunteer. Yeah, giving them opportunities to volunteer. Meet with them, talk to them. Yep. Yep, I get a weekly newsletter from my son's school, just so that I know all the happenings that are going on at the school. Anything else? PTA, that's great. I wrote an article about that. That's kind of what I think maybe the Institute of Soccer Parenting should be. I mean, the PTA serves a real valuable resource to parents in education, and we don't have anything like that in soccer. And that's a problem because the imbalance of power that exists between parents and coaches, and we'll get into that as well. Any other ways that you can think of that schools engage parents? Open houses, back to school nights, having those connections with them. Here's what I came up with. Consistent communication, back to school night, volunteer opportunities, weekly emails, PTA, we already talked about all of this. Good job, everybody, you came up with it all. And then feedback via report cards. We don't do that enough in youth soccer, and that'll be one of our takeaways here today. Events, career day, bringing people in. I was talking to this guy, I wish I could remember his name, just to just call it out, because it was phenomenal. He started this at his club, and he came into the booth, was at the Changing the Game booth last night, to talk to me about it. Every Thursday night, they have the parents come out to play. They have a coach that they dedicate to coaching the parents, actually teaching them step-overs and pullbacks, and then the parents play small-sided games. A lot of times, the parents don't even have kids playing at the same time. It's like a new practice that they come out to. I think that idea is phenomenal. And then at the end of practice, if your parent is out there playing, then you can go join in and play with the parents for the last few minutes. I mean, what a great idea. And I said to him, I was like, well, the first night you had it, did anybody show up? Because that's kind of weird. He said, oh my gosh. From the first night, we had 32 people show up, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And talk about out-of-the-box, innovative thinking that even me, I was thinking, I don't think that would work if I did it in my club, but he's had tremendous success. And the benefits of it, he said, now the parents know each other, they're on the sidelines talking to each other, they see each other at the fields when they go to the fields, and they can acknowledge each other. So it's had a tremendous impact on the way that the families are interacting within his club. So again, we can kind of relate this to how clubs can engage parents, consistent communication, meet and greet nights, volunteer opportunities. We actually don't have we have rec coaches for sure at our club, but we've taken away a lot of the volunteer opportunities that we have, and I can see how that's maybe impacted the connection that people feel. So we can do these same things that education is doing, we should be thinking about doing them through sports. And I think the real big question here, and this is the one that we really need to try to figure out, and I don't have the answer to it, is why aren't parents more engaged? I mean, this is a multifaceted problem that we have, and I think there's a few reasons. One is that, coaches are fearful of giving up their power. It's kind of comfortable the way it is right now. It's kind of easy when the door's not opened and we don't have to engage. I get that. I mean, it sort of is easier. It's causing a lot more problems, but we can be comfortable in that.
Sorry, what do you mean by coaches are fearful of giving up their power?
So I think right now that there's is that your phone?
It is.
Can you turn it off?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to drop kick you out of the room. Or you can get up and dance for us. I think that, we talked about this the other day, and we'll get into this, and what are the real issues that we have in youth sports, and there is an imbalance of power. And I'll get to that in just one slide. But there's definitely, that's a big issue that we have. I think another reason that parents do get more engaged is that they don't think they need it. I mean, I have really good friends that know all the stuff that I'm doing on soccer parenting, that have kids that are playing, and they've never been to my soccer parenting site. And I kind of find that, I'm like, why haven't you gone? There's so much great information there. But just culturally within our and you've probably tried parent education things before, and nobody showed up, right? So we need to figure that out. And my suggestion is to make parent education mandatory in a very simple, easy way. If it's a 25-minute online course that parents can take, I'm coming out with one. Positive Coaching Alliance has one. I think John, with Changing the Game Project, has one. So maybe we can offer these online parent education courses. And I think we need to make them mandatory. When I'm on the road speaking for soccer parenting or for Changing the Game Project, I'm always telling people, please make it mandatory that parents go. Yeah, of course, some parents won't be able to, but we need to make it mandatory because, quite frankly, I think it's that parents really just don't think that they need it. Another reason why parents aren't more engaged is because coaches don't have the skills to engage parents. I mean, how often in your coaching education course did you deal with emotional intelligence, or how you can communicate with parents better, or how many times have you had continuing education within your club where they've talked about, best practices for communicating with parents, or we just don't have those skills, and that's something that we now really need to be seeking out. Parents aren't actively seeking it due to this imbalance of power. And this is a real problem, like we talked about. Let's talk about youth culture today, and let's get into this power. I did this slide yesterday, so I know it's redundant for some of you, but this is the state of youth soccer right now. This is the wall. We're going to create a wall here of what's going on. The coaching culture in the United States is disconnected. We see it from the very top down. We see it from, I told a story yesterday at my National B license when I was getting my goalkeeper license. I had a question, and there was a great group of goalkeepers there. The staff was fantastic, and we were all friends just because we're coaching at a high level for goalkeeping. I'm there with Kevin Hartman, is in the course with me. Jason Grubb, who's down at the Dynamo now. It's just some great goalkeeper minds. We're all together taking this course. 3 instructors, probably 7 or 8 of us as students, and they didn't want to hang out with us, even though they were our friends. They were like, no, we got to maintain our distances here, for this course. We can't seem like they were playing any favorites, and we're just wanting to talk soccer. We're just trying to learn. We're just trying to take advantage of this amazing opportunity for a week for 9 high-level goalkeeper thinkers to be together. What amazing things could have happened. And sadly, that opportunity was missed. So this coaching culture in the United States is disconnected. That is no different than the stress that parents feel in trying to talk to coaches. So feeling like that door isn't open is the same way that I felt, at my different licensing courses. There is an unbalance of power in the coach-parent relationship. We hold all the power, coaches. Parents don't want to talk to us. They're afraid to talk to us. They think if they come to us and they talk to us about an issue that they're having with their child or stress that they're feeling with their child, they're afraid that their kid's not going to play the next game, that you're going to think they're weak. That is the reality of what's wrong with us right now. And we need to face this reality. The parents are fearful. Parents are stressed. Coaches are fearful. We're scared. We just lose a game 4-0 that we should have won to our crosstown rivals. We're scared. We're afraid that parents are going to all leave and we're going to lose our job. That is what's happening. Coaching is lonely. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. We don't mentor each other enough. We don't connect enough. We go and we do our games. There's not enough opportunity to talk about things, not even just about tactics, but how we're feeling, the stresses that as coaches we're going through. Youth soccer especially, because we don't have assistants, we don't have staffs, we're not necessarily meeting at the offices all the time, unless you're full-time in the game, but it is very lonely. These damn crazy soccer parents, seriously, they're definitely ruining it for all of us. And I will dive deep into crazy soccer parents in just a minute here. The core mission and values are often forgotten by coaches. It's just what's happening in the youth game right now. And these core missions and values, why do we want our kids to play? Because we want them to love the game. We want to impact their lives. The values that we talked about, the 6 soccer parenting values, that is not what drives our actions. If we're coaches of integrity, those values should be driving every decision that we make. But sadly, that's not happening. And it's not happening because of the fear that we have, because of this pay-to-play model, which needs to happen. And I get that pay-to-play needs to happen, but pay-to-play wouldn't be as big of an issue, and parents wouldn't be jumping all around, and we wouldn't have these stresses, and clubs wouldn't be folding if they were feeling like this was an amazing opportunity for their child. John's team was 23-1. And those parents were really excited. None of them were leaving because he was focusing on values and process the entire time instead of focusing on anything to do with the outcome. And so parents forget it and coaches forget it. And this is the worst part of it all. Sadly, just our players are afraid. They're afraid to make mistakes. My daughter plays in the ECNL. She's a U17 there. She loves going to Own Touch, the program I was talking about for my son, because she's like, I can just have fun. I can play. I can try new things. I'm not going to get yelled at. And her coach is fantastic. I love her club coach. But that's the way my daughter feels. That's the reality of the way she feels when she's training at Own Touch versus training with her team. And that's because we're not pushing our values enough. So let's talk about crazy soccer parents. We all have lots of stories about them, and this is my take on them. Because like I said, after last year's convention, I wrote an article about why crazy soccer parents are ruining it, and how we need to look at parents as the solution and not the problem. And the crazy soccer parents are the problem. They're irrational. They live vicariously through their child. They have unrealistic expectations for their children. They don't listen or hear what you're saying. You're trying to have a rational conversation with them. It is not going to happen. And there's little that can be done to help them. Just very little. In fact, there's really no hope for them. And so what we need to realize is that the crazy soccer parents actually make up about 2 to 3% of your team. There's quite possibly, you have no crazy soccer parents on your team right now. What you have is a lot of stressed parents. And you have stressed parents because you haven't engaged them. But once you engage them, all of that will go away. And these crazy soccer parents, I mean, we just need to forget about them. So I wrote an article the other day, or a couple years ago now. It just gets pushed out. Every time it gets pushed out, it just gets shared thousands of times. This is an article for parents. Parents, this is how you deal with a crazy soccer parent. Don't let them have a voice in the team. Just speak louder than them. They're in a conversation. They're trying to hold court when you're at a tournament, and they're in their hotel, and they're being all negative. Just speak louder to them. Avoid being near them. You're on the sidelines. You put your chair down next to them. Literally, pick up your chair and walk away and put it somewhere else so that they suddenly realize that they're sitting there completely alone, because we just need to push them out of our culture. Make sure that the coach is aware of the problem. Very important. And a lot of times we're aware, as parents, but we don't know what's happening and how stressed they're making all the parents on the sidelines. Be extra nice to the child. I think in the article, I'm like, save their child from the car ride home. Invite them home with you after the game. Because who wants to have to deal with a crazy soccer parent? These poor kids. So, be extra nice to the child. And then we need to stand up to them as parents. I love not going to my daughter's games. I love hearing about them from her. And of course, I go to her games often. But when I don't go, it's actually a treat for me because I get to hear about it from her point of view. And that's a gift to me. And when she came home the other day, they were down in North Carolina for the weekend. She walks in the house, and I'm all excited to have this conversation with her. And she goes, Mom, you are never going to believe what happened in this game. And I'm like expecting her to say, this diving header, or I shut down this girl, or whatever. And she's like, a mom of the other team flicked me off. And I went, what? She's like, no joke. And she really flicked me off. Like, she stared at me, holding her finger up at me for a good 10, 15 seconds. And I looked at her and I said, you do realize you're like 50 and I'm 16, right? I mean, she said that to her. I was so proud of her. What the heck is going on that's happening? And what really needs to happen, though, because I was fascinated by this, I wrote about it, and I got so many comments. Oh, yeah, that happened the other day. From referees, oh, I see that all the time. What the heck is wrong with us, people? We can't allow that to happen. I mean, at some point, a crazy soccer parent crosses the line, and we need to say, not acceptable. You can't do that. You can't talk to another child. Okay, you're going to be horrible to your child. I mean, you can parent your own child the way you want, but you can't talk to another player. You can't talk to a referee like that, especially, our younger referees. And I love this in my article, the power of aggressive statements. I mean, that's the way you have to handle them. As coaches, that's the way you have to handle them too. As a parent, you're on the sidelines and they're screaming and you say something like, oh man, if I screamed like that, my child wouldn't ever let me go to a game. God, I don't know how you get away with it. And just sort of these little passive aggressive statements to them. Maybe that will get them to think. But most likely, there's nothing that we can do about them. And really, we need to kick them out of the group. We need to unwelcome them. We need to say, you guys can't be here anymore. If you're going to scream at a girl on the other team, and I will say to the credit of the North Carolina team, because obviously I called Aaron, our coach, and I said, hey, did you know this was happening? And he's like, oh my God, that's horrible. He couldn't believe it either. He talked to the other coach, and now the parents handled, and it's not on the sidelines anymore, because you can't be on the sidelines if you're doing that. And so kick them out. Say, you can't be here for the next 3 games. You have to get video of it. You need to get proof. And if they have a problem with it, just say, goodbye. We'll miss you. Not really. But we don't need you to be here and be a part of our culture because you're dragging it down. And when that happens, and when we do that, and when we start getting the crazy soccer parents and pushing them out of the way, then that is when finally our club culture is going to improve. I mean, we can relate to this. How negatively can one person impact a team? Yeah. Haven't you ever had just that player and like, oh my gosh, if they just weren't on my team, everything would be better. They're whining all the time. It's the same thing for parents. When we're talking about driving team culture there, it's the same thing with driving club culture. So again, I really hope that we can take our power back, but also realize that we use them as an excuse too much. You know, my question to you is, what's going to happen when we actually stop using the crazy soccer parent as an excuse? And they're used as an excuse, and it becomes a problem on multiple levels. One, parents don't want to be that parent. And so another example of John O'Sullivan, I assume you know him. He owns Changing the Game Project. He's on this mission of giving the game back to kids. He was coaching this team that I was referencing, and you know, 3/4 of the way through the season, a parent called him, and she's like, "Oh, I've been thinking about calling you, and I've been really nervous to call you. I hope you don't mind. I'm calling you, but my daughter is really struggling because she's not getting along with somebody who's being really mean to her." And he's like, "Why would it have been hard for her to call me? I mean, she knows what I do, and here she doesn't feel like I'm opening the door to her, but I've opened it profusely to her." And it's an issue that we have, and this runs really, really deep because parents are so fearful of being portrayed as that crazy soccer parent that it actually stops us from advocating for our children. And as coaches, we use crazy soccer parents as an excuse. Like I said, I've heard it 50 times already this weekend. "Oh, they're just ruining it." Or, "I don't want to deal with any parents." And that is never going to work. We're never going to see the change and the improvement that we want to see in the game if we're pushing parents away. So the benefits of engagement, we know them. We already talked about them. But there's two other super important benefits of engagement that I want to propose to you. If we engage parents in the youth soccer process, we will eliminate the crazy soccer parent. They will no longer be welcome. And we can let them all go and train with the underperforming, inadequate coaches that are driving us crazy as well. Because when we start engaging the parents, we'll be pushing those underperforming, not willing to change, bully maybe coaches out of the picture. Because when we give parents some power, they'll realize that they can stand up and say, "That's not the environment that I want to be in anymore." And so we get so frustrated when our parents leave us and go to another environment, yet we haven't educated them on what the right environment is. So how can we really have that big of an issue with it if we haven't actually talked to them about the process and engaged them on what is important? So I know a lot of you are like, "Oh, geez, I already am doing so much. I can't spend my time engaging parents as well." But in fact, we're really just talking about a really small portion of engagement here. This is where it connects. And really, I think, depending on the age level, these concentric circles can shift a little bit. At the younger age, maybe you're engaging parents a little bit more. At the older age, maybe a little bit less. So it's not really a big part of our time. And what's going on right now is that this is why we have stress. Because we've pushed parents away and we haven't connected with them is where we have our stress. So let's talk about for a second what parents are stressed about so that we can then try to solve some of these problems. What do you think parents are stressed about? College, playing time, money. Like, can I afford this? Okay, yeah. So lots of issues. I can't hear one at a time.
Value.
If they're getting value, yeah.
Sometimes even if they like your kid, sometimes they might feel like
They might be stressed, like, does the coach like my kid? Yeah, I can see that. It's hard for me when the coach is screaming at my daughter. Actually, like, it does bother me on the sidelines. I know he's supporting her and she needs to hear it, but it's hard to be a parent and have somebody, even if they're being motivational, like calling your kid out. It's stressful, definitely. Yeah? Results? Yeah, I mean, I think that we can try to hope to get past that. And you're right now, parents are definitely stressed about results. But they're only stressed about results because we're not engaging them and teaching them enough about the process. So once we start changing what the value is, and if a parent knew that every time they came out to practice, their child was going to learn a life lesson or be a better person or, be engaged and excited and enthusiastic, if we're focusing on the really important values, then I think parents might not, I know parents won't be focusing as much on the results. I think we talked about most of these. Playing time, their child's performance. I mean, gosh, it's so hard. How many of you are parents? I mean, oh, it's so hard to watch your child underperforming. Just the stress that mounts with that. Or to watch your kid and it be 25 minutes in the game and they haven't gotten in the game yet. Even though you know that they're number 14, 15 player on the team, it's hard. It is really, really hard. And also, they're stressed about injuries and coming back from injuries. I find a lot of parents are stressed with completely perceived issues with the game. So they don't know the game. And so I had a parent the other day call me or email me saying, I really don't understand my daughter. She used to, spend so much time. She used to spend so much time dribbling the ball, and now she only passes the ball. I'm like, okay, what do you mean? And so we started engaging more. I started talking to him, and his daughter then went from playing a forward to playing a center back. Well, of course things are going to change, and here's this parent that's having this stress about that. But it's really just because they don't understand the game. It's just a complete perceived issue because they don't understand the game. I think this one's really important. Unrealistic expectations for the development and for team performance. Just think that the team should be doing more, performing better. And again, that's just because we're focusing on the results too much. They're stressed about college placement and just the happiness, the contentment of their child. And these are all real stressors. These are all very significant things that as coaches, we need to look at this list and say, how can I engage my parents more on these specific issues so that these don't become so stressful to my child? I think the other thing that parents are stressed about is real issues. I started soccer parenting when my daughter, who's 16, almost 17 now, joined our ADP program, our advanced development program, player program, at our club. We dropped her off for the first day. She's so excited to be there. It's the first time with these paid coaches. And our fields at Richmond Strikers are phenomenal. It's this little youth training park, complete with this room that has this small building with. It's just a wonderful training area. It was horrible. The coaches were so unqualified to coach this level. My stress was just going through the roof, watching this coach for the first 22 minutes of every practice say, 1, and the girls would do a step over. 2, they do a pullback. 3, oh my gosh, it was horrible. And when my daughter would get in the car and say, I'm just not having fun, I was like, I don't blame you. And I was ready to take action. And so I go to our club, I go to our director of coaching, and I'm like, listen, what can we do to improve? Can I get out there? I'm happy to, help at all. And I was a crazy soccer parent. That's how I was perceived, completely. I was out of my mind, feeling just completely slighted. Here I am, with all of my soccer accolades, and the coaching that I'm doing at a higher level, not even being welcomed. And I was definitely perceived to be a crazy soccer parent because of the culture that we had within the club. And I looked around, and the other important thing there is that none of the other parents were really feeling very stressed because they didn't know. This is a really big club that had been around for a lot of time, that had produced a lot of players because they're thinking about results and how many kids went off to college because that's what's on the club website. And so they're thinking, this is great. And I was like, oh man, we are never going to see the improvement that we want to see in the youth game. Never are going to see that improvement if parents don't know more about the game to step up to this. And so the next day I knocked on the door of the office of the president of the board and asked to get put on the board quietly. I wasn't trying to be a change agent at that time. And got on the board. 6 months later, I got asked to be on the executive board, the actual decision makers. 6 months later, when we needed to add 2 more people to the board, I suggested people that I knew would be on the same page with me. And 2 years after that, we had a new executive director. And now the club is phenomenal. We have the greatest youth program. I talked about it a lot yesterday. We're just doing wonderful things there. And really, that's because I was a change agent and many other things that fell into place, but because I knew. And I think a lot of parents are stressed about real issues. They're stressed about real issues with the club. They're stressed about real issues that they're having with their coaches, and they have nowhere to go. We're just assuming, we're pushing them off, as if they're being crazy soccer parents. So we need to acknowledge this, and we need to jump full board into this. You know, when we're trying to move beyond things, I love this quote because, one, it's from an architect, and I feel like that's what we need to do right now is just like re-architect the way we're thinking about our clubs. But we have to go wholeheartedly into anything to achieve anything that's really worth having. And so as coaches and as clubs, we really need to buy into this concept. And we need to open the door. We need to open the door to parents. And we also need to close the door. We need to set really clear boundaries of how this is going to work. And I know that a lot of us are coaches that don't have experience with, you know, opening and closing doors and dealing with different things in corporate cultures and different things like that. But it's essential that we put these practices in place so that we can open the door to parents so that they don't have the stress anymore. And I will propose to you that it will not take a lot of your time. It's not like all of a sudden you're going to have parents calling you every day if you ask for them to call you. If you're focusing on the values and you're focusing on the process instead of the results, when you open the door to them, they're actually not even really going to come to it very often. But it's important that at least you open the door. And this is what clubs need. What time do I go till? Oh, okay. Oh, here it's just a timer. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like 5 minutes after. You guys are still sitting here. So 2:15. Okay. So this is what clubs need. I need to go really quickly. So they need mission and value statements. We talked about that. You guys need a player development plan. You can't just pretend anymore. If you're going to engage parents and they're going to have more power, you're going to need to do better. We need a coaching education plan. It needs to be written, it needs to be policies. We need written policies about parent engagement, what we're willing to do. We need process for complaints and issues, systematic feedback. We do not do that enough. Even at a young level, we need to be providing systematic feedback, and we need a parent education platform. These things have to happen when we're engaging parents. And if you put these things in place, then we'll see the results that we've been talking about, the wonderful things that will happen. So the areas that we need to educate and engage parents in order to reduce stress are what I've divided in soccer parenting, and I think you'll find these to be accurate. If you have any other ideas, please come and talk to me about it. And I call these the 6 pillars of soccer parenting. This is the worksheet that you have in front of you: the mind, the body, the game, the next level, the parent, and the coach. These are the areas that we need to be focusing on when we're educating parents. And I'll go through each of these quickly. You guys have this worksheet. You can fill it out. I was going to have us spend a few minutes and do that, but I'm going to just kind of keep jumping so we can maybe take some questions here. And then at the end, I'll show you a completed one, so we'll go through this. But they are available on my website as well. So the mind, we need to be, and interestingly, I find this very interesting. I wrote these value statements not at the same time as I wrote the 6 pillars. And I thought, hey, I have 6 value statements and I have 6 pillars, and then I was able to put them together. And I found that very interesting. It made me feel like, hey, we're onto something here. So our value statement about life lessons, dealing with our values, dealing with our education about the mind. You know, we need to teach parents about developing a growth mindset. It's a big issue that we have in youth soccer right now, is too many of our kids with a growth mindset are getting identified early, and there's the ones that are just receiving all the better coaching and are getting pushed forward because they happen to be the 8-year-old with a growth mindset. What happens about the kid who doesn't develop that type of mindset until they're 11 or 12? And so if we can educate parents about the important role they can play in helping their child be a better performer, then we'll start to see the kids' games elevating, and we'll also start to see some perspective about that. You know, dealing with mistakes, failure, setbacks, dealing with injuries, game preparation, leadership. I interviewed Jerry Smith from Santa Clara for my Soccer Parenting Summit. I did a summit a few weeks ago where I interviewed 21 youth soccer experts, pushed out all the interviews over the course of 3 days. It's at soccerparentingsummit.com if you want to check it out. And one of my interviews was with Jerry Smith, and he talked a lot about followership. And that's a big issue when kids get to college. They're all the leaders, and then in college they have to become a follower. And talking about the body, you know, dealing with minor injuries, helping a parent decide if their kid is hurt versus injured. You know, we try to assess that about the child when they're on the field, but what if the parent can assess that before they even get out there? Have that conversation with the child so they're not coming to the field even thinking about it. They're realizing, hey, right now I'm just a little hurt. So dealing with ice versus heat, I mean, how many parents are putting heat on something they should put ice on, or vice versa? Growth considerations for their child, very important topics. Recovery, periodization, specialization. We could have a whole hour on, you know, youth sports specialization. And nutrition issues. How frustrated have you ever been going to a tournament, realizing the kids just have McDonald's, and you know they're trying to play their second game of the day? What are the parents thinking? But have we told them? Have we educated them? Did you just say something to the 11-year-old, hey, don't eat McDonald's? I mean, like the 11-year-old is going to tell their parents that? So we need to engage your parents in that as well. In terms of the game, laws of the game, developmental pathways, basic tactics, technical basis, just some terminology, which, you know, again, is just another big issue that we have in youth soccer, our country, and we don't have a common vernacular. I can't talk to a parent in California about my daughter in Virginia and even know if they're playing at the same level, because somebody's playing classics versus premier versus this versus that, and nothing makes sense. So, and then I think we also need to educate parents about the different coaching education that's available, so that parents can maybe engage in that themselves, or they can understand maybe what's going on with the coaches that their kids have. The next level, this is essential. You know, parents need to understand their child's potential. This is the biggest stressor for a parent, thinking their child is going to be better than they actually are. I mean, if you want to go to the most stressful youth soccer environment, go to youth soccer at around the age of 11, because that's when all the teams are starting to figure out. They're just about to go to kind of like the 11 aside, and they're moving from the 3 teams into the maybe 2 teams, or 2 teams into 1 team, and some kids aren't going to make the team, and the stress on those sidelines is crazy, because parents aren't just quite sure about what the future is and what the potential is for their child. And so we need to be really clear about what the pathways are. I know my son is not a performance player. He's a participation player. It's clear to me. It's been clear to me from the very beginning, but that's something that a lot of parents don't ever even clue into. You know, should be playing recreation? Should they be playing travel? Should they be playing up? What are ODP, IDP, PDPs, training centers? What are all these things? I work training centers for US Soccer now, and I hate it when a kid come out for once, and we're just so clear that they're not going to be invited back again. And I want to talk to the parents and say, you know, this isn't the end of anything. You know, we need to educate parents about these pathways and what a great opportunity this was for their child, and to get them excited about that. You know, what's important about specialized training, summer camps, college guidance. And then, you know, all of my articles that are about just these real parent issues, these are the ones that really take off. The car ride home, how to talk to your child after a game, the whole I love watching you play phenomenon, sideline behaviors. I mean, how can you expect parents to understand how they should be talking on the sidelines? And I'll do a talk on Saturday, seven steps to get parents to stop talking from the sidelines. Like, we've never tried to educate parents about not talking on the sidelines, yet we complain about it all the time. So I put together a 7-step pathway to get parents to stop talking. So if we can educate them about it, and the importance of not talking, and importance about if your communication is disruptive versus supportive. Dealing with crazy soccer parents, the level of involvement of a parent, relationships with coaches. I mean, all of these things are essential. And what I tell parents is that the most important decision you make is the environment your child is playing in, based on their athletic potential and based on their mentality. And so, who better than a parent to understand their child's athletic potential with information from an experienced, educated coach, and to understand their child's mentality? And this is where we go wrong a lot, is that kids are playing in the wrong level because parents just don't know, and they push them forward, and it actually sets them back, because they end up quitting the game. So the coach, expectations for training sessions. You know, what a parent's expectation should be for a club. Yeah, we need to get some parents in power here. Because when we do that, those bad teams, the bad clubs, the ones that we can't believe, like, why in the world are parents going to that club? They're not doing the right thing. They're focusing too much on winning. They're not developing players. They're not focusing on the people. Yet we're never spending time educating these parents about how to make these right decisions. Handling conflict, expectations for communication, and guidelines for communication to the coach. So you have this on, there's some copies of it up here, but this is sort of the 6 pillars filled out, and you know, there's hundreds and hundreds of articles and content that's flying around the internet from me, from Positive Coaching Alliance, from Changing the Game Project. You know, there's lots of people that are providing this information, and we're seeing more and more that this list, I mean, I could have gone on for hours about the different things and processes that parents need to be educated about. And I really do believe, and I changed the quote from the beginning, is to be a little bit more empowering. You know, when we give parents a voice, when we engage them, we will find the elevation in the game that we're all seeking. Because is what we're doing working? It's oftentimes really just not working right. And yet we keep doing the same thing over and over again. And youth soccer is not working the way it should. It can be much, much better, and I believe that engaging the parents is going to be our first step towards doing that. Wouldn't that be nice? So please give me thoughts. Here's all my information. Does anyone have any questions? I'm supposed to throw this ball around, but I think we can probably hear each other. If you have a question, I actually can't see you raising your hand, so sorry, I can see everybody taking pictures. So if you want all of the slides or handouts, also a 30-day free membership to mysoccerparenting.com. If you go to mysoccerparenting.com/NSCAA, for those of you that were at my session yesterday, I changed the pathway to getting the information. This is a new form to fill out. If you did it yesterday, it's fine. You're on that mailing list. But I'll just go ahead and send all the slides to you next week once I get through this weekend. Any questions? Yes? Oh, thank you. Thanks. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Great. Well, yeah, I understand. This is I mean, I was expecting people to be throwing things at me by now. I mean, this is a hard topic, and but it shouldn't be. And we just have to get our head around the fact that things really just have to change.
Thank you.
Yes, did you have a question? Yeah, I'll come up and I'll talk to you about it. Yeah, it's about crazy parents on your board. You got to kick them off. I have no patience. I'm a change agent.
I know you're out of time, but one thing you said that really is a struggle for all of us is, when is it a crazy parent? You gave a great example with the finger, but you also described yourself, and I bet you many coaches would consider you a crazy parent the way you did the things you did. So if we execute correctly, we'll kick you out before you ever get on.
And that's been a problem, and that's why youth soccer hasn't progressed. I mean, I was a stress parent.
But they're going to define you as a crazy parent.
Yeah, I agree. Yes?
What you described as far as you're concerned and how you went about it for your club, obviously you have
The background.
level of background. What I've seen, in my organization, the players that have the most issue are the ones that have more of a soccer background, and it's always a philosophical difference between how a coach trains versus how they would kind of train athletes.
Yeah. Well, I think if you talk about your processes and your developmental pathway and what your player development pathway is, then that's not going to be as big of a problem. If they know what they're getting and it's clear, then that won't be as big of a problem. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. Hey. Let me turn off my mic.